I not need to then?
Just in case, do it because sometimes OBS just goes shit. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm recording through the OBS, so anything could happen. They don't want to redo everything again, so let's just have backups everywhere. Okay, so we start.
I'm good. Give me a second.
All right.
Give me a quick second. Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, we're going to do a part 2 about what gamers think about films based on video games, and this topic has been going all around. Um, um, yeah, so let's just start with the basics. I still have to um, let's see, dig in deep more to this investigation because there's a lot to it and it's very annoying for what I just wrote here and quote from other type of gamers that think that video games films based on video games suck ass. All right. So before I go read these 5 pages with double spaces. Let's see. Investigation. I would want to hear Shinja's thoughts of, and OfficerDan's thoughts of what do you guys think about back in the days and today's films based on video games in general.
Um, in general,
Yeah.
especially like back in the day, I was never really excited about uh uh movies or yeah movies being adapted from games. Mostly because I saw it the same way you kind of see when a popular movie comes out in the theaters and they usually just suck out all the money they can off of
Mm-hmm.
it by making coloring books, and then you've got the toys at like McDonald's and Burger King, and then you get a whole bunch of other cheap stuff made kind of to like suck all the money out of it. That's what I kind of felt like from a lot of uh, video game movies, where it's kind of like, wow, this was a huge success. How do we keep making even more money out of it? And usually it's make a sequel or um, just a really bad rendering of the game in a movie form.
Right.
So like, especially back in the day where like CG wasn't all that great, you know. Um, there's just something about 4x3 movies that just usually, like, looking at them now, it's not going to end well. Like there's going to be something going wrong with them.
Yeah.
Especially when there's CG involved. Um, so like back then I was like it was okay. Um, Now I'm thinking even more like, oh, that was we should have never stepped into that. Um, you know, deep, vast
Mm-hmm.
darkness that is CG in 2005 or so.
Yeah. Back then when technology wasn't that of, today's technology of CG or visual special effect, that it hurt the movie so much that people hated it because of that.
By the way, is it just me or like every time I think about these older movies, I'm thinking about specifically older movies, CG movies, the colors always look darker and weird. Like they're all like browner.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's how it used to look. That's all.
They have this weird filter going on over them, and it's like,
yes.
yeah, I don't know.
Um, so yeah. So Dan, your thoughts in
Oh
general?
boy.
Yes.
Yeah, we are quite aware of the fact that they always end up sucking. Video game movies, they're always ending up terrible, aren't they?
I
It's
mean,
just super well known. They will never catch a break.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I mean, like, but like Mario Brothers, for
Oh,
example.
Oh,
please,
you are.
don't.
Did you light that fuse on me already? You
Yeah, I
had
was-
this out
Dan
for me to
loves that
explode later?
movie.
I hate that movie. You had to set me off on that already. Well, I'm going to set it aside for now. I already lost my train of thought. I'm going into a blind rage. Okay, so when I was younger, anyhow, uh, there weren't a lot of video game based movies, but there were people that sure tried, like the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm quite certain that's probably the first one I'd ever seen, but I was mad, and maybe if you put me on a couch with a therapist or a psychiatrist or something, maybe that's where my hatred of Hollywood even started. Because I haven't been happy with Hollywood for the majority of my life. So maybe Shinja's just having that effect. But
Mhm.
getting it out in the open with the Super Mario Brothers movie already. Every once in a while, there's somebody in chat that always wants to bring that up.
Someone was asking us the other day. Well, I got DM like, you guys should do a live reaction to Super Mario Bros. Movie.
No,
Oh, I hate
no,
it
no,
so
torture.
I mean, that's the point. I told them that. And they're like, no, that's the point.
It truly is. Like, as I was saying, I haven't been happy with Hollywood for a really long time. It's not just these video game movies, it's that in general. There's quite a number of people that agree with me that, they've been out of ideas for a super long time and they can't afford to take risks. So I can understand some of their side of it, but they've just been pathetic. Like Maze Runner, that's a movie for some reason. You have people running around in a maze.
But that's not a video game.
But it's
No, it's
adapted.
not.
Is it?
I'm
Is it? It's
I'm
an
saying,
adaptation.
yeah,
Yeah.
adapted from a book because that's not as much of a risk. It already has an established audience. That's all
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah.
Hollywood has to go on. Is what I'm trying to say. Is like for some
Yeah.
reason, people want people running around a maze in a book. It already has an established audience. That's just how Hollywood's operating today. That's why I brought that up. That's the angle I'm trying to come from. Um, and so that's why you have things like Assassin's Creed. Oh, you have
Uh,
Michael Fassbender, and you have this, and it's already like this big yearly franchise that Ubisoft has to put out every single year. Like sells millions all the time. Surely this is going to turn out fine. But no, you have boneheads that take creative liberties in absolutely everything in Hollywood. So maybe that's where it starts for me. Again, I'm being repetitive, but like, oh, Hollywood wants to adapt so and so into a movie, and then I see the Goombas from the Super Mario Brothers movie. Like, what kind of idiot are you? What kind of creative liberty is this?
oh yeah. I saw that movie and I wasn't. It was not that of the disappointment because I knew it was gonna be shit just from the very start. Just when just Ubisoft was like so excited, I was like, this movie is gonna suck from top to freaking bottom.
Correct.
Yeah, cause I mean, from my research, which I'm going to read in a few minutes, uh, it all depends on the writers. It all depends on the director, writers, to to get focused and to have that same vision and go to that same direction because what I've been reading, it's like they don't have that kind of connection with the actual adaptation from a video game to port it into a freaking movie.
No respect for the source material.
Indeed. And so with movie license games, just like vice versa. If movies, video games based on movies from which they're shit, and that doesn't work at all. So I'm gonna read here, um, and I'm going to read what I wrote and what I quote, because this is very important, and I want to hear your thoughts of what I wrote and quote.
Sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about Final Fantasy Spirits Within because it covers everything. Yeah, it covers everything that most movies based on video games have today. Even previous years, even movies that are adapted before this movie. Here I go. Okay, this film has problems everywhere, such as animation, dialogue, character development, voice acting, and the story. A Final Fantasy hardcore fan YouTuber Pro Jared says, this film has a reason to be hyped for because of PlayStation amazing CG cinematic cutscenes and the love for their story. The film starts with a dream sequence instead of establishing ourselves in the setting and world. We open in a vapid imagery that means nothing and then wakes up from the dream. Movies start with exciting set pieces or engaging moments to draw viewers in. He mentions also about the animation in humans having problems with their skin lacking of muscle movements. Seen in when lip syncing dialogue, even the protagonist Aki has different facial features than she does in other scenes. He also says that the voice acting is terrible, everyone is wooden and dull, and their delivery lacks any kind of emotional impact, that not even jokes land because of poor delivery. He mentions that the performance and characters are forgettable, that when they die, no one cares. The dialogue is bland and boring, partially from writing, but primarily from lack of acting. So I said, this makes me think it's a bad sci-fi movie with the title of Final Fantasy. That's my thoughts. Most of the Final Fantasy fans that I know that have seen the film say this is not a fantasy movie because it doesn't have anything related to the franchise. We all know that an adaptation is not always faithful, but this one is totally unfaithful from top to bottom. I guess having 6 writers in one film is also a bad idea. But what's funny is that the director and writer of this film are the same director, writer, creator of the Final Fantasy game series. I'm gonna start right here. When I say that the director from the movie is the same creator of Final Fantasy game series, this is something that I do not like to hear. Cause sometimes when I think about developers should make their own games into a movie, but right here we got a freaking example of even good writers from video games cannot even do good writing on a movie, and it's disappointing because even people, developers, creators from the from the video game can't even pull off uh, a film. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, well, a lot of people will argue with you that the Final Fantasy stories are quote unquote
Mm-hmm.
good. I mean, like, someone made a supercut the other day of someone reading out all the different plots for the different Final Fantasies, and they're like, it makes absolutely no fucking sense if you if you try to follow along. I think the biggest failure was the movie you're referring to. Was the fact that it didn't feel like Final Fantasy, or it didn't feel like it even was part of the Final Fantasy world. You know, supposedly it's set in the Final Fantasy VII universe, isn't it?
Uh,
Let's just say it is. I think because
Seven-
it's something else, man.
Uh.
it was like sort of the same universe. They had the whole like
I can see why you'd think
Like-
that. 7 has that sci-fi setting, you know.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Well, I
Even-
was thinking
even
like
Final Fantasy X was released that same year, and I'm like, why is this happening? So anyway, keep on.
but it was doing the whole like Earth energy thing and the different plants and whatnot.
Yeah.
But other than that, you couldn't really tell it was Final Fantasy. I mean, Pro Jared mentions it pretty well. Like, there's no summons. Nothing has like where's Bahamut? Where's Ifrit? Where's Shiva? There's no magic being thrown around really. It's just a weird like quote unquote action sci-fi sort of movie. It's just really odd in general, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it definitely is weird that like you have someone like you mentioned, they oversee all the stories of all the Final Fantasy games, and yet you don't see anything from them being put into the movie.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wonder if like it was some sort of decision from Square Enix or whoever is making all the calls for like the publication of the movie and whatnot. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. You, Dan?
As a writer myself, I subscribe to the idea that writing for video games and writing for film, they are two completely different spaces of activity and thought, completely different. Let's take a fantastic example of like cinematography and like action and the way story was upheld through a game is Uncharted, right? Absolutely. Lots of people are going to think that. Lots of people are going to want to compare that to Indiana Jones even. Like, this is the video game Indiana Jones. Now, I'm blanking on that wonderful lady's writer, but that was the Uncharted trilogy is penned by this one particular woman specifically, and I've dug into some of the behind the scenes of how Uncharted's made and everything. In fact, some of that stuff is even built into the disc or like the Nathan Drake collection. I kind of am forgetting how I ended up seeing some of that stuff, but you know what her key writing process was the game engine devs and everything. They are tinkering and working on set pieces. So, like, I forget which Uncharted game it is exactly, but take that level where there's like a boat, where you're like out on a cruise liner out at sea, and as you're going through the level, the different things are happening to the boat. Different parts are flooding, and different bits and different parts are like moving around and everything. See, how that worked is they developed and created that technology to have something visually stunning and interesting, like a setting like that, like with that boat. And then the writer is penning something around it to make it work. And that would not happen that way for a movie. In a movie, like you already have a set idea of like how some effects can work and your budget is set and then you're writing into it and then they're building it. So I think that's part of the reason why that's great. That's the creative box and limitation
Exactly.
that you have. Having limitations isn't a bad thing.
Mm.
I think it's fantastic to work with what you have and
Yeah,
work with what you're
exactly.
given.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's what the lead writer of Uncharted did.
Nice. Well, so, uh, going to that point, I quoted another YouTuber. Cinema Sense says this film is for people who enjoy video games but don't like controlling the video game. We're talking about Final Fantasy, Spirits Within still.
Mm.
So I'm gonna jump. Let's see. Yes. So I said, I guess all the money was just for how amazing it looks because it was the first photorealistic computer animated feature film and remains the most expensive video game inspired film of all time. Yeah, fucking right.
Really?
Anyway,
Like, I would have thought like World of Warcraft would have passed it by now.
even fans who like this movie said, "Oh yeah, if if this movie wasn't even created, Avatar would never have existed today." I'm like, freaking shut the hell up, man.
Yeah, I mean they might be right in some regards. I don't know.
Anyways, so I found an interview. This interview is interesting because it's the co-director of Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. The co-director, Motonori Sakakibara. So I'm going to jump into the 13th question, and yeah, the first this 13th question is like, what are the similarities and differences between directing a movie compared with the games you have worked on? So he answers this. Uh, the one big difference was having to maintain continuity in the images throughout the film. In game production, the CG movies inserted throughout the game are standalone on their own. So I didn't have to worry too much about maintaining consistency and continuity between each movie. Whereas with a feature film, the viewers are constantly looking at the imagery, so that has to remain consistent throughout the film, and trying to maintain that was quite a bit different. As far as the production process, the process of creating a CG movie for a game is pretty similar to what is done for feature film work. Then why did it suck? Why did it suck? Because the animation wasn't even that great. I know the visuals are really realistic, but if you see the animation for the characters, it's just like unreal. Even Toy Story had a freaking realistic movement of human,
And
but
they're
but
plastic.
these, yeah, but these like type of animation just look like robots. Ugh. Anyway, so I keep on. So alright, so even though some other movies are of these adaptations or live action, they still have the same problem of maintaining consistency and continuity. I found an article that I'm going to be analyzing. That's the adapted film based video game for first person shooter called Doom. Oh my gosh, this movie. Okay, and I quote, It's kind of hard to say why. Some would say that the plots of most video games are just too simplistic to translate into a movie, existing just to give the player an excuse to go out and fight things. Others would say that video games are essentially movies that have showmanship sacrificed in favor of control. So sacrificing the control leaves you with a bad movie. Maybe directors just invariable pick the wrong genre. And FPS is exciting but doesn't exactly put effort into character development when that character is meant to be the player, us, of course.
Mm.
Maybe there's too much reliance on the popularity of the game to sell the movie. Of course, that's why they do that.
Mm.
Rather than writing quality. Duh, that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been seeing all this time. Moreover, he gives a solid point of the difference between fighting games having the same plot for different characters. We see that in Street Fighter, Tekken, etc. And for platform games is to get from A to B, in which fighting games involve multiple endings for each character, but that movie writers need to pick one hero over all the others. Yeah, that's one of the problems of uh, the characters in a video game to put it in a movie. Because if we do a Tekken movie, let's just take that as an example, even though there is one horrible. They need to pick a protagonist for that movie, and they need to focus in his background story and all that, sacrificing other great characters from the game, and they just like in the movie they just like supporting characters. Uh, Anyways, and it keeps on. At the end of this article, he says another possible contributor to the lackluster reception of video game based movies is not necessarily that they're bad. As critical dissonance, how do you say that?
Dissonance.
Dissonance?
Dissonance, yeah, yes, demonstrates in a few instances, but that the current generation of movie reviewers and critics didn't grow up with video games and thus can't better appreciate said films without experience with their source material, similar to the situation with comic book based films. This is a solid reason why they keep making more of these adaptations. That's me talking. In other words, they are fully supporting something that they have never experienced before. And
Yes.
that is buy gaming. Yeah, that's buy game console with a game, plug it in a TV, pick up a freaking controller, play over 6 hours, and get to know why you like or hate the freaking game. On the contrary, with Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, people that who know a lot about games, the developers, couldn't make this one to work. This is what co-director had to say regarding our disappointment. So we're going back to the interview, and the question is: many fans of the Final Fantasy game gaming universe were upset because there were very little fantasy elements in the film, such as magic, monsters, etc. Can you comment on why these elements didn't appear? And this is his shitty ass answer. One of the reasons goes back to my previous comment on the whole game to movie thing, where we didn't initially sit down and say, let's turn the game into a movie. I guess the idea of the project was elsewhere, in that we wanted to push the technology envelope further for computer graphics and show off Square Enix skill and the artist scale on the big
Mm.
screen in Hollywood. Oh my god. So we didn't start out saying, okay, here's a game and we're going to put it on the big screen. Then I say, then why all the hype with a trailer that had nothing to do with the plot of the movie? I got the answer. Most trailers show the good and epic stuff about the movie, but the
Yep.
only good and epic stuff about it. Showing too much of the only cool thing that movie have is when they realize the film is not what us viewers will never expect. But there are some Final Fantasy fans that like Final Fantasy Spirits Within. Fans that probably don't know how a movie works unless how an adaptation should be like. Conclusion, adaptations are not always faithful to its origins, but that doesn't mean they can hire bad writers. The film could have the best actors just like Spirits Within, Alec Baldwin, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi, Donald Sutherland, Keith David, and more. But I learned throughout my film and student career that everything that happens on screen is all the director's fault. As for me, that I have experienced gaming and studied film, still a long way to go. But sure, but so sure that adaptation should be treated with careful, especially video games. My honest opinion on Final Fantasy Spirits Within, it's boring, and I tried to watch it in different point of view, such as a filmmaker and a gamer. None of them worked. Most of the films based on video games lack of the same problem, some more than others, but one of them is stuck, and that's writing a script. There is a difference between a live action and an animated film. We clearly see it in Doom and Final Fantasy The Spirits Within. One is that they are unexperienced with games, the other is with experience, and none of them could pull it off. So, what's the deal? It is simply not knowing how the other entertainment media works. Overall, if the production starts with no clear ideas and not having a straight vision from the director, it's a total downfall for a lot of things that are going to be projected on screen. As a gamer, I would want to see that the director and writer do research on fans instead of developers, because the consumers are the ones that made that game successful. If we don't buy the game, it's a total failure. Same as a film, support matters. The director and writer should play the game so they can head towards the same direction. Sadly, today we still getting bad films based on video games due to the lack of research and understanding, cause it's all about the money. Whew. I get that off my chest.
That was a wonderful piece.
I can tell you've been thinking about this for a while.
Oh yeah, man. Because I'm really pissed off.
Mhm. Pro Jared is a wonderful source. That guy's my favorite.
Yeah, Pro Jerry is one of the influence why I'm doing this, man. Because, I mean, we deserve more respect because we're not dumbasses. We know
Mhm.
what's in a freaking movie. We know how it works. They cannot underestimate our knowledge either. They just think, oh, let's just make this because the game is popular and we're still gonna get our money. I mean, this is Hollywood right here.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they just care about box office sales
Exactly. Yeah.
rather than like how actually like well the game performs or if it adds. I'm sorry, movie performs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Rather than actually making it look good.
I mean, it's really insulting because we deserve better than this because that there has been like they're 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 even making a new Tomb Raider. I'm like, oh man, why you do this?
And
Well, Tomb Raider's like one of those games, or it's like Uncharted. Like it's like, oh yeah, you can easily connect it to like something that's already been done before, like Indiana Jones. So
I like
they're
the
probably
Angelina Jolie
yeah.
Tomb Raider. I like those. Of course, they're not perfect, but at least they're friendly. They're fair to the adaptation because they're like Indiana Jones and they had the game's elements in there, and that's why
If they're
people enjoy
making
it.
if they're making a new one, I think it's almost a perfect opportunity or time to do it since they just released the quote unquote reboot.
Right.
Um, so they don't have a lot to fuck up now.
That's what we thought about Assassin's Creed.
I mean, that's what I say, or what everyone says about everything. Really, it's like, oh, there's no way they could fuck this up, and then you know something bad inevitably happens.
mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, what were you say?
the last part that I wrote about, instead of like doing research on the developers because developers still going to make the same mistake. Go, us fans interview fans of the freaking game because we play the game. We know why it is good. We know the elements why this game is good. Us the fans, we like, uh, what it's in this game. Because if you ask developers, they're going to tell you all the technical stuff. Um, they're not they're not going to tell them the perspective of a fan, even though they're the creators. But even I'm a creator of a film, and I cannot be a fan of it because there's so many mistakes on that film that it's good. I appreciate my work, but I could have done that better. That it's not the information they need. They need other type of information through the gamers, which is us, the consumers who buy the freaking games, know that it's good, know what it's sold well. Those are the things that they have to look for. Cause I know developers, yeah, they have to go and research on that, but not all of it. I mean, why is this game successful? It's
Yeah. I feel like not only just Hollywood, but just anyone that's looking to make a video game movie, they should try to look for different directors for the movie, because usually, especially Hollywood, they'll usually go to like one person that they first think of, like like all of a sudden you hear like a new movie for like Bloodborne's coming out. You're like, oh wow, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and I was like, what?
you don't know who the freak this guy is.
Well, no, I do. We all know who M. Night Shyamalan is, but it's like, why the fuck is M. Night Shyamalan making Bloodborne, and then it ends up being the next, the Last Airbender movie, where it's
Oh my
literally someone
gosh.
like, instead of you being a normal human infused with alien blood, you're some sort of creature that comes out of like a pool of blood or something, and I don't know. There's like lots of like fast-paced music and action scenes, and it all of a sudden turns into like a karate film. I don't know.
He's gonna turn it like his point of view, because I respect directors, unique stuff, because directors are different, they have different perspective. But if
Oh
they
yeah,
don't play the game, if
yeah,
they're like, oh yeah, it's a famous game, let's just research some stuff and let's just put it in. Get 6 writers and let's get 20 ideas and just import them into this movie. That's what Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within it was. 6 writers who weren't Japanese.
yeah. That's like the point I was trying to like get to. It's just like, try to get like a director who's actually played the game, but has, they have a pretty good like uh demo reel of what they've done,
Right.
and then but include also like the creative team behind the story of like the game, because they both need to work together. So inevitably, when translating something from a game to a movie, things have to be changed.
Oh yeah,
Like,
a lot. Yeah.
not like,
It's 2 hours versus 6 hours of gaming, 12 hours of gaming. Yeah, it's
yeah,
different.
leveling up and that sort of stuff as well. Like, um, like I mentioned Bloodborne earlier, and there's no Bloodborne movie, but like let's assume,
Please don't give them ideas, man.
yeah, right. But like, like in Bloodborne, you have to level up using blood echoes and whatnot. Like translating that kind of stuff into a movie, like you're not gonna have one guy constantly going to a doll after like killing tons of people and going back to the dream over and over and over again to level up. It's gonna more be like just a couple time things, maybe turn that whole leveling up scene to an actual like interaction where you like learn more of the story and whatnot. Um, here I am giving them ideas for a movie, but
That's just yeah, let's not give them ideas.
but anyway, yeah, like we just need people who've actually played. They're really invested in the story, and it's hard. You just gotta try to like you said, appease the viewers and the players by keeping in what they love the most from the series.
Exactly, yeah. Um, the One of the problems of Final Fantasy Spirits Within was that they hired 6 writers who are not even Japanese. One of them is Japanese because the director it was the same as the writer. So it was one Japanese versus like 3 Americans and one from other country. Ah, this is where things go wrong, cause you know, I can write a script and I can ask you, Shinja, hey Shinja, I need an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get out of this hole because I'm stuck with this script. Can you help me? There's two of us right there. We can work it out. We don't need 6 people.
Yeah.
I know that some scripts, some adaptations need a lot of writers, but they weren't experienced with video games at all. I searched them one by one, and they never adapted a shit before.
You make a good point that like was that many amount of writers, especially with something that apparently had never been done before. I think that was just setting themselves up for disaster, to be honest. Because no one really knows what it should look like, since it's like technically the first of its kind. So all of these people trying to kind of, make one huge hodgepodge of like, oh yeah, I think that will look okay.
They don't know shit.
Yeah. And then, if they what's his name, the primary director saying the whole continuity thing being an issue, I think that even makes it worse with 6 people.
Exactly the point. I mean, even in the interview, you could see the questions, and you see his answer avoiding a little bit of. It's just freaking funny, Because I know that the guy is a really good, cool Japanese developer or co-director, whatever he is, because he made Final Fantasy 7 and 8. I think it was 8 or 9. Yeah, and those were his influences for this movie. And I don't get it at all. I mean, these are creators who can't create a movie, which I really know the fact why, because they do not know how a film works. They don't know how a movie is supposed to be built, because what I told you guys earlier, the dialogue was bad. Even the acting with such great actors, such great nominated and Oscar winning actors in this film, it breaks my freaking head. Because why would you let this happen? Because even I think there was the voice actor of one of the Powerpuff Girls was involved in this film. Oh man, they were all American, mostly all American, and I'm like, so this is a Final Fantasy American then? Because I don't know what target they just go because of their idea, because their idea was flying all over the freaking film, because it was about a ghost alien. Then there was no character development at all with other uh the other characters were I never cared about the other characters at all. How could a film works, having development, having conflict, having a decent, good storytelling, and a conclusion to give us a message. This movie did none of that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this co-director right here, he is a fan of this film, because he stated in the interview that, yeah, I recommend everyone to just rewatch it again, because there's a lot to see there the second time. So yeah, fully recommend. I'm like, shut up, man. I'm like, I know it's like your first film, because that's what it stayed on my research, because I researched everything that you did. And I know it's like kind of like your masterpiece, but I mean, that's
Setting the bar really low. It's my masterpiece.
yeah, cause I mean, it's you don't know how films work. Period. That is not how a film works, because I was bored. Proterras was bored. Cinema Sense was bored. Kaine was bored. And Kaine, yeah, she played every Final Fantasy. She can tell about a Final Fantasy, what the story and the lore and the magic, the monsters. And a hardcore fan can tell you how to do a freaking movie, because they know they're fans. It pisses me off, man, because it's like it's insulting. Because these are game developers not knowing the other kind of media, like film. Other side than Doom, because Doom, they knew about how to build a film, but they don't know how to adapt a freaking video game to a freaking film. It's just like, what the fuck? This is like the other way around. Neither way works. You have to be a fan. That's like the only way. You have to live with the game. You have to be a full a fanboy. Let's call it like that, fanboy. It's like the only way. Cause you can't make a freaking shitty films like most of all this past decade and this decade. Any last thoughts, guys?
You have anything, Dad?
I was gonna say I have seen one movie that has come close, but coincidentally, one of the links that you showed me just before we started Zyber actually made a point how like dating sims and virtual novels come the closest,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
people would a lot of people would consider Phoenix Wright to be like a virtual novel.
Right.
Really close with the gameplay and mechanics it has, but I would have to say that the Phoenix Wright movie came really close. I am a giant fan of this series. Not as big of a fan as I used to be though, because I've been lazy and haven't even bought or hardly even seen the last two games. But I have the first, I have the trilogy, and then yeah. Anyway,
Nice.
um, that movie comes close. There's definitely places where it could have been bettered, but it took me by surprise because there's some people that like honored how crazy the characters can be. It's like an adaptation that really came close to supporting the original work, the source material, and that's what we cry out for and ask for with these
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things.
yeah.
And that's
Uh,
why that movie was working.
Indeed.
the anime, which I know you didn't finish watching, also did a really great job.
Yeah, I
Um,
believe it would. I just, as a big fan of the series, I think the anime deserved a bigger animation budget.
yeah, but they did a really good job at translating what happens in the game. Like,
Yeah.
they can't do everything because of it would take more than half an hour to do the whole like investigating thing that you do in the game. But they did a pretty good job at translating it. Um, and
From what I've seen, I completely agree.
yeah, and I actually enjoyed it. Like I could tell which cases were based on, or what the episodes were, which cases were which episodes, basically. You know,
Yeah.
and it actually, like, they didn't cut out anything from the cases. Like, you saw exactly what you see in the game.
Indeed. Anything else? Any rant?
Uh, Nintendo hasn't been super hit by it. Uh, you know,
Well,
Nintendo's been understandably been wary, but there's been rumors for years about people wanting to do Metroid over here or a Zelda series over here, and
just
yeah,
to just to let you guys know, Capcom and Nintendo are the most that have film adapted video game. Yeah,
Especially
such
back in the day.
such as anime and live action,
Yeah,
both.
they they used to like hand out licenses to like their
That's because
stuff.
of
Like,
Pokemon.
yeah, they used to hand out licenses to their stuff like crazy just to like get extra money.
Right.
Um, so you got
yeah,
a lot of weird stuff that like it might have the Nintendo name on it, but they had no hand in it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
see,
Which
just
is
that's why Pokemon works out because
mm-hmm.
that's a team of writers that like respected the universe and forged something of their own inside
Exactly.
of that
It's
inside of that universe.
exactly, and you see Pokemon films that are not exactly like the game because the protagonist is you, but they use Ash just like the anime, but since this is
Hmm.
adapted from a game, you still respect all like okay, so this game came out this year. So we're gonna get all the Pokemons, mostly all, not all of them because they won't fit in the movie, but let's take the popular one and the favorite ones and just like put it in the movie and let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
They have been making it like for years and they're all I like all the Pokemon's
Hmm.
films. And
I feel like usually like anime movies do a better job than
except
like
for Spirits Within.
except for Spirits Within. I don't want to count that as an anime movie, but I guess it technically is in there.
Dude, like I just realized Professor Layton had an animated movie, and I remember liking that too. Wow, I forgot I even watched that.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else at the moment. I'm sure there's something out
There's
there.
a lot of really good animated movies that Japanese created. Also, Japanese have developed the film, not Americans, not other people from other countries. Japanese. If the game is
Again,
Japanese, make it Japanese.
again, I just reiterate just to say that filmmaking or film writing and game writing, again, I believe are two different
Two
schools of
different,
thought,
yes.
two different actions. I know it was from the perspective that we were talking today. We know it's also quite stereotypical in the game world for um, movie-based games to also be terrible. But just, I also can't help but think that I covered that in my pre-rendered graphics video
Mm.
with Blade Runner. That was a team that loved that universe, and they forged something for themselves and made it work inside that universe. Again, it just reminds me of Pokemon too.
They did it
They
the other way
just
around,
respected it.
didn't they? They went from movie to game.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Also, from the perspective of video games, that typically movie-based games aren't any good either.
Yeah.
It's just to
Exactly.
show off the point that it's
Mhm.
two different schools of
Yeah.
thought. But that was a talented group that did it that way, and I think understood that.
Yeah, it's like being careful with what you adapt because even comics, novels, books, I mean, they throw a lot of stuff from the book to just make the film, and that is, that it's fair, but don't be as unfair like bad writing, bad directing. Make it at least possible for the fans of the novel or the game because there's a reason why they make these films because of maybe money, of course, the money, because of this game success, popularity of the game. They think that the movie's gonna be also popular. Yeah, right. But as Officer Dan said, it's totally different. Uh, the scripts are different. Video games and films are freaking different. As as for me, I'm a screenwriter, and it's really hard to just like get inspired by something else and just make it your own. But since you're adapting something, you're supposed to get inspired. But also, if you have the rights uh, to import stuff from the game, then you shouldn't be scared of it because of copyright issues. You supposed to if you pay for the rights, then it's no issue unless they just like, oh, don't put this and don't put that. But it's a maybe it's all about business too, because business also gets in the way. But it's just like be careful and like respect us gamers because we're not dumbasses. I know, we know if the movie sucks or not because of the film. Even a 10-year-old would say this Assassin's Creed piece of shit. Yeah, because I mean, didn't understand a lot of stuff from the film either. That even though, of course, it's supposed to be different from the game because of Animus and the assassins and all that, but they didn't do it well. It's just frustrating, just making another freaking Tomb Raider. Fuck. Anyways.
They'll make another Superman 64 or Matrix games.
Oh my gosh. Or Super Mario Brothers 2.
Super Mario Brothers 2 isn't bad. It's just
I think he means another live action movie.
oh,
Mhm.
gotcha.
Yeah. Anyways, I think this will be it. This rant, this podcast, and yeah, guys. This has been Zarapunky. Please don't forget to favorite, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to.
My name's Shinja from Karibu Kai Play, and this is also
Officer Dan. And I host Karibukai Play with Shinja, and we stream Super Mario Maker every Friday.
at 11 Central Standard Time. Anyway, thank you for joining us this podcast. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe again to Zyber Station, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys later.